My sister announced she was pregnant for the fifth time on an ordinary afternoon, standing in the kitchen like it was good news meant to be celebrated. I remember the exact moment because my hands were deep in dishwater, surrounded by plastic cups and dried cereal bowls that weren't mine. The house already felt too small for the lives inside it. For kids ran through the hallway, fighting over a tablet, their laughter loud and careless, while my sister Cheryl smiled, as if she hadn't just dropped another weight onto my shoulders. Living with Cheryl had slowly turned into a role I never applied for. I was supposed to be her younger sister, but somewhere along the way, I became the second parent. Mornings started with packing lunches, evenings ended with homework and baths, and weekends disappeared into grocery runs and laundry piles. Cheryl was always exhausted, always overwhelmed, always promising she'd do better next week. Her husband Blake was usually working late or simply gone, a shadow who existed more in excuses than in presence. So the responsibility landed on me quietly and permanently. At first, I told myself it was temporary. Families help each other. Sisters step up. But time stretched on, and gratitude never followed. Instead, expectations grew sharper. If a child misbehaved, it was my fault. If the house was messy, it was because I hadn't managed things properly. Cheryl spoke to me like an employee who could be replaced, not a sister who had put her own life on hold. When money started disappearing, the tension changed. Cheryl accused me of taking cash, then escalated to blaming me for damage around the house, small things at first, then bigger ones. Each accusation chipped away at something fragile inside me. I began to realize that no matter how much I gave, I would always be the easiest person to blame. Standing there with soap drying on my hands, listening to her talk about another baby, I felt something shift. It wasn't anger at first. It was clarity. I saw my future stretching out exactly like this, years of unpaid labor disguised as love, my own dreams shrinking to make room for her chaos. As Cheryl talked about doctor's appointments and baby names, I stayed silent, but inside a decision was forming. I had been carrying this family for too long, and for the first time, I knew I wouldn't keep absorbing the damage. Quietly, I didn't confront my sister right away. I learned instead how to become invisible inside the same walls that had once felt like home. I watched, listened, and remembered everything. Cheryl moved through the house like a storm that never cleaned up after itself, leaving promises scattered behind her. She told neighbors she was doing everything alone, told relatives I was helping out a little, and told herself the story that made her feel justified. Each version erased me a little more. The lies grew bolder as her pregnancy progressed. Money vanished again, and this time she didn't even hesitate before implying I had taken it. When a window cracked during one of the kids' fights, she accused me of slamming it in anger. I realized then that I had become convenient. If something went wrong, the explanation already existed. It was me. No proof needed. Blake stayed silent whenever she complained, his absence somehow louder than words. His bags were packed more often than not, and when he was home, he moved through the house like a guest who planned to leave at any moment. I kept taking care of the children because they were the only innocent ones in the chaos. They leaned on me without realizing how heavy they were becoming. I knew their schedules, their fears, the way each one cried differently at night. That knowledge hurt because it tied me to a place that was slowly destroying me. I started to understand that love without boundaries becomes a trap. The turning point came quietly. One evening, I overheard Cheryl on the phone, laughing as she told someone she could always rely on me because I had nowhere else to go. The words settled deep, heavier than any accusation. In that moment, I saw myself through her eyes, not as family, but as a resource, something to be used until it broke. I began preparing without announcing it. I saved small amounts of money, applied for freelance design work late at night, and searched for places to live where silence existed. When a small studio opened up in Madison, Wisconsin, it felt like oxygen. I signed the lease without telling anyone. The day I moved, Cheryl was out, and I left behind nothing but a note saying I needed space to rebuild my life. I expected anger. What I didn't expect was relief. Freedom, however, didn't come cleanly. Weeks after I left, Cheryl's health collapsed. Complications from the pregnancy sent her to the hospital, and the children were scattered between relatives who didn't know their routines. The guilt hit harder than I thought it would. I went back, not because Cheryl asked, but because the kids needed stability. I set rules this time. I wouldn't give money. I wouldn't accept blame. I would help temporarily and on my terms. Cheryl didn't like the boundaries. She tested them, constantly pushing, manipulating, reminding me of everything she'd done for me. But something had changed. I no longer needed her approval to breathe. When she recovered, I stepped away again, more firmly this time. I arranged support for the children through a trusted friend, Tara, someone who could help without being pulled into the same cycle. Watching Cheryl realize I was serious felt like standing at the edge of a storm, finally choosing not to step back into it. After Cheryl recovered, the distance between us stopped being accidental and became permanent. I didn't argue or explain myself anymore. I simply stepped out of her orbit. The silence that followed was heavy at first, filled with years of guilt trying to pull me back in, but it slowly turned into peace. I kept my promise to the children, staying involved through Tara, making sure their needs were met without sacrificing myself again. Loving them no longer meant losing myself. Cheryl's life began to unravel without someone quietly holding it together. She lost her job after missing too many shifts, and the excuses that once worked ran out. Blake disappeared for good, leaving behind unpaid bills and unanswered questions. For the first time, the consequences landed where they belonged. Cheryl tried to reach out, not to apologize, but to regain control, and that told me everything I needed to know. Meanwhile, my own life finally had room to grow. My freelance design work took off, not because it was easy, but because I could finally focus. I built routines that belonged to me, mornings without chaos, nights without fear of false accusations. The strength I found wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet and steady, rooted in self-respect. I still think about my sister, but not with the same pain. I see her now as someone who made choices and refused to face them. Walking away wasn't revenge in the way people imagine it. It was justice. It was refusing to be the safety net for someone who never planned to stand on her own. In the end, I didn't destroy my family. I saved myself. And in doing so, I showed the children something Cheryl never could. That love doesn't mean enduring harm, and that reclaiming your life is sometimes the bravest thing you can do.